Hello, welcome to the 215 ownership panel at Side by Side, leveling up your indie brokerage. What are the keys to continued success and scalable growth? My name is Stephanie Voorhees, and I oversee strategic accounts at Side. And today we have three amazing indie broker owners and entrepreneurs, including Bryn Shoki, founder of Shoki Properties Group and Bayside, Nicole Solari, founder of the Solari Group and Level Up Realty, and then Brett Jennings, founder of the Brett Jennings Group and real estate expert. Today's focus is about how these three got to where they are pre and post Side and where they plan to take their businesses in 2021 and beyond. Feel free to ask me questions in the chat and we'll do my best to address them in the end. So let's get to know our panelists. Let's start with Bryn. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself, your market, yours in the business?
So yeah, our company is called Bayside, and we are in what we tease our Northern California counterparts in the real South Bay, which is Manhattan, Hermosa, and Redondo Beach, and then Palos Verdes, Torrance, and El Segundo. Been in the business. I got my real estate license in 1983. I started in commercial real estate with C.B. Richard Ellis. I had a brief stint developing high-rise luxury condos in Hawaii, and then in '92 settled into residential real estate in Manhattan Beach.
Awesome. Nicole? Oh.
Hi, sorry about that.
No worries.
Sorry about that. Nicole Solari with Level Up Realty, formerly the indie brokerage Solari Group. I've been with Side for about 3 years and been in the business for 6. So half my career has been with Side, and I'm in the Napa Solano market up in Northern California.
All right, and Brett.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. Real estate experts. We run our indie brokerage here in Silicon Valley. I like to affectionately call it the Garden of Eden of real estate. I guess all of us around the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, here where Side was founded, enjoy nice, higher than normal price points. But our median is about 1.3 million, and we been in the business. I've been in the business going on 12 years now. Owned 3 different businesses before real estate, and last business was in financial services, but had a strong emphasis in marketing. That's always given me kind of the mindset and the engine to grow a bigger business.
Awesome. So why did you decide to start an indie brokerage? Let's start with Nicole.
I actually always knew once I decided just 6 years ago that I was going to get into real estate that I wanted to own my own company. So I started out the first 2 years with the goal of becoming a broker. So literally on the day of my 2-year anniversary when I was eligible to become a broker, I left the big box brand to start my own. So I kind of had I guess I call it like a 2-year incubation period of, starting my brokerage. I had a lot of success behind the big name brand, but I knew that I wanted to do things differently, especially in my market, which is kind of a smaller market. Our average price point here is about $460,000. So even though we're, in the Bay Area, so to speak, a lot smaller market, and then just a lot different, closed-minded way of doing business, kind of like the old guard. And I wanted to bring what I knew from like Silicon Valley and working in the startup industry to this area. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do that under the big box brand.
Got it. Bryn?
We had a family company that had been around since the early 80s, and my folks were kind of stepping away from it. It was not predominantly residential, and my brother and I, it was during the '92 recession. Both kind of were at a spot where we landed back in town and saw an opportunity to jump into residential real estate, albeit somewhat reluctantly initially, but it was never a consideration to go anywhere but have our own shop. That was always kind of how we think and operate.
Got it. What about you, Brett?
Yeah, our journey into independent brokerage, or my journey in independent brokerage, began, I guess, before I got into real estate. I did spend a little less than a year as a mortgage lender before I got my real estate license and started on the residential sales side. And I read Gary Keller's book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And having been kind of an entrepreneur, having owned and sold a couple of different businesses, the team model specifically appealed to me. And then when I started to uncover, or to discover, I guess you'd say, what real estate brokerage was about, it was pretty interesting because real estate's really the only industry where the brand, at least the big brands like Coldwell Banker or Keller Williams or what have you, it's the only industry where the brand is not emblematic of the customer experience. You go to Starbucks, anywhere in the world what that vanilla latte is going to taste like. But if you work with Mary at Coldwell Banker or Joe at Coldwell Banker, you're going to get two totally different experiences. And so I wanted to create something that we could deliver a consistent experience, consistent and an elevated experience. And I knew we could only do that on the brokerage side. The other thing that eventually nudged us in that direction was I was at Keller Williams when I started the business, grew my team there quite successfully because they had a culture and a system that was wired for teams. But what ended up happening was as I brought in good, talented agents and grew them, say from, before coming to my team, they did 5 or 6 transactions. And after coming, they went to 20 or 25 transactions. They enjoyed that relationship with me and being on the team for about 2 years. And then they kind of wanted to go do their own thing, build their own brand. And I did not have a path to growth for them inside a traditional brokerage model. They would just go out to the main office and start, selling real estate there. And, they would end up doing less deals and making less money than they were when we worked together. So I knew I wanted to have a bigger sandbox, right? That I could accommodate those agents that were on my team that now wanted to grow and do their own thing.
Got it. And while I have you, what do you think has made you a market leader? What are the keys to that?
Yeah, I think it's being, it's all the things that our side partners that probably, qualify people to be side partners and are attracted to side as a place to run their business. And that is one, they're top producers, right? These are people who already are operating at a high level, and they want the ability to innovate without restriction, in an environment that celebrates that entrepreneurial spirit of innovation. Like Nicole was saying, she felt stifled in her previous brokerage experience. So people who are top producers that want to innovate and want to kind of elevate what's happening in the industry, and be in an environment where we feel like supported and celebrated for that, rather than, hey, stay in your lane, kid.
Totally. Nicole, what about you?
Pre and post side, as you mentioned, I think that a few things make all side partners, like Brett said, unique, is that, we operate at a high level of integrity always. That we work with a lot of other competitors and can't always say that. We have a high work ethic. We treat our business like a business. We show up every day. We do what we're supposed to do. We do what we say. Communication is really important. I know everyone knows the term going dark. I can't tell you how many people, when things get difficult, they just go dark. And I think that that's one of the differentiators. No matter how difficult it is, we stay in the game. We stay focused. We see it through to the end, and you never wonder where we are or what we're doing, because we're telling you every step of the way. I think that really has propelled us to really quick success.
Great. And Bryn, what about you?
I think there are common threads that run through all of us, and one of our core beliefs has been to put relationships. We pursue relationships, not commissions, and that manifests itself in a relentless pursuit of optimum results for our clients, whether they be buyers or sellers. So it's that drive and that commitment to an ethos that I think animates most side partners.
Awesome. I love that, relationships over commissions. So Bryn, what do you think is important to be a successful indie? I mean, with all these companies, the Compasses of the world coming up, how do you stand out and continue to grow?
Well, I think one of the tough things about coming from an indie environment to going to a side platform is that you're stuck with the hundreds of distractions every week of running a brokerage company, and you are also you're doing your normal production, but you're also trying to stay on top of innovation. And Side gives us a platform that not only supports the backside of the brokerage, which is in my case was always a distraction, but it also is continually pushing innovation. So we don't have to be out there trying stuff out, doing dry runs. That's all done for us. So we're constantly put in the cutting edge and the driver's seat of what's going on in the industry, and it's a wonderful support.
Brett and Nicole, do you have anything to add on in terms of, what's made you a successful indie? Oh, Brett, you're on mute.
As far as growing our agent count, or just like in general, what's given us traction in the market?
Either or. I mean, it's an open-ended question. I mean, just in terms of how you're able to stand out, continue to grow, et cetera, and,
Yeah.
continue on that trajectory.
I think our commitment to growth and learning. I mean, how probably many of us became successful was we really had a relentless pursuit of learning. I know myself, I probably have spent over $150,000 on like coaching and masterminds in the last 10 years. I was always chasing who is the best in this particular niche of real estate, and I think that's one of the things that has really helped us grow, because we're looking for agents that want to grow. And in so doing, these are the people who are kind of, at the leading edge. Like when shelter in place hit, like we were the first people to be doing virtual open houses, and then using Calendly, like the adoption of technology on a kind of a fail forward, fail fast, with a fail forward, fail fast mindset is really what's helped us kind of innovate, adopt, and grow. Especially our business tripled through COVID here. So I think that's one of the attributes. And I know Nicole shares a lot of that because I copy some pages out of her book about like how she's using technology to like keep a really tight ship.
Great. So, when all of you three partnered with Side, you were both the top producer and operating a brokerage. And, since you've partnered with us, I'd love to understand how your role has evolved and how you're continuing to, or hope to continue evolving your roles. Let's start with Nicole.
Yes. Gosh, I was such an operator as a broker owner, without the back end support of Side. I was constantly worried, scared, nervous, paranoid, all of those things that make me sound a little bit crazy. Because I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, constantly, triaging, constantly just trying to fix problems rather than growing my actual business, and rather than, looking at how I'm going to scale and how to be able to predict my, my sales, predictive and sustainable business rather than just like triaging, which is the only thing I can think of. And I literally in my mind think about like someone's like blood gushing and me taking like triage, because I felt like that's what I was doing every minute of every day. And honestly, sometimes at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, I mean, I was bone tired, and I thought, oh my gosh, we have 4 closings tomorrow. I still have files to audit. So being able to like take a step back from like the day-to-day, the mundane, the things that, are necessary to keep a business growing and surviving and thriving, but stepping out of that role and really being like the CEO, really being like, how am I going to take this to the next level? How can I improve the consumer experience? How can I develop and, get my agents to grow? How can I get them to their next level? And I wasn't able to do that because I was constantly just in the weeds on everything else.
Got it. Brim, what about you?
It's interesting. So one of the great things about the Side model is that it's not one size fits all. So Brett's got a different business model than Nicole has got a different business model from us, and they all can work. And that's one of the really neat things about it. We're in a unique market where it's kind of uber high end. Our average deal is in the millions of dollars, and as it's a profitable place to be a broker, but it historically has not been a profitable place to run a brokerage because we've had very, very low splits. So I describe myself as a transactional broker. That's where I've spent most of my time on transactions, and the side partnership has allowed me to really focus not on just what I enjoy, but where I add the most value, which is really focusing in on with clients on transactions, and our market's shifting a little bit where brokerage is starting to. There's a space now, I think, where we can run a more profitable brokerage, and we're starting to expand as a result of that. But it's historically been a place where that hasn't been the focus.
Got it. And Brett, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear Bryn's experience because he sounds like he's gained efficiency in his own independent brokerage by being able to offload things to give him more efficiency and doing more transactions, and that's in really focusing on the client, and that's what he does best. For me, like one of my passions is coaching, and prior to coming to real estate, one of my previous careers, I worked with Tony Robbins for a few years out of college. And I love that experience. I always thought, oh, after I retire from real estate, I'll do life and business coaching. And it was at the prompting of one of my peers that's like, hey, why aren't you doing that with your people now? I just at that time didn't have people who wanted to grow. But now that for Side has given me kind of scalability because as Bryn talked about, brokerage operations are not rocket science. However, they are quite literally a drag. I did own an independent brokerage prior to coming to Side between 2013 and 14, and we did about 100 million in business. But like E&O insurance, commission demands, like making sure there's paper for the copier, somebody's got to handle that, and it is a drag when you're trying to grow like a sales organization. And so that's what Side has given us. And as far as like my journey to how my role has changed, from being like a high producing agent to a high producing team leader and now running an indie brokerage, it really has forced me to become more systems dependent rather than people dependent. I think Nicole kind of touched on that. Like in the beginning was an agent transactionally, so much of this business is problem solving so that we're constantly putting out fires. But then we recognize, oh crap, if we're going to grow, like we really got to dial things in so there's not as many fires, and we can really focus on moving things forward. So for us to go from that team leader to brokerage has required, and it's a steep learning curve, and I'm in the middle of it right now, really focusing in more on building systems and developing people. And that's not necessarily the skill set I had as a great salesperson. So it's a learning curve for us, and we're in the thick of it, and trial by fire, I guess you'd say.
I like it. And what are your company goals for 2021, Brett?
Well, we it's interesting because I put together a plan for our brokerage a few years ago, like I guess we've been with Side a little over 2 years, and we put together this one-page like strategic plan. And one of the things on there, right, is like a 10-year target and then a 3-year target. At the time, I was like, I don't know where we want to be in 3 years exactly, but I have to put some numbers out there. And the interesting thing was our 3-year number was like 500 million in sales, and we came very close to it for last year, and we came very close to it. But with our current stage of growth, our goal is to do over $1 billion in sales this year, and I think I'm confident that we'll do it because we've got great people, and we're currently on pace. So. That's our goal.
Can I just
Love it.
interject?
Nicole,
$1 billion
yeah.
sales? Did you just say 1 billion with a B?
billion, baby.
Billion. That
Yeah.
is crazy.
But it wouldn't have been possible
Well,
without like the scalability and support that we get from Side, because as this indie owner, you have to hire ahead of growth, right? You have to, like, when you're trying to when you're yeah, and so there's just we're super grateful that we feel supported in the role that we do with Side. But yeah.
all right, Nicole, what are your goals for 2021 besides $1 billion in growth? Because I'm assuming you'll do that too.
You heard my average sales price earlier, right? Like that's a little far-fetched, but
You do a lot of volume, my friend.
we do a lot of volume. My goal for 2021 is not necessarily sides and revenue. I've always said since joining Side, like I have, no interest in growth. I want to sustain. Where I really want to goal myself to the next level is to start bringing myself more and more outside of the business, to start replacing myself, piece by piece, so that I can have more time with my family, things that I enjoy, make up for all of the lost time that I spent with this build, tear down, rebuild, etc. I know we've all done that. If you've owned an indie brokerage. So it's not necessarily to keep growing or get to that 1 billion in sales. It's more just taking myself outside of the business more and more.
That's great. And Brand, what about you? What does 2021 look like for you in terms of goals?
So we're still small from a number of broker standpoints. Last year we did a little over 320 million with 13 brokers, and we'd like to double that this year. So we'd like to get up to about 25, and I mean, we're slackers next to the $1 billion goal, but we'd like to hit $600 million this year.
Love it. Awesome. Well, very excited to see what happens in 2021, and want to dig a bit deeper. So, you've had some impressive growth numbers since partnering with Side, and you've mentioned this one-page business plan before. Tell me more about how that's been important for you. I know you said you randomly threw out numbers, but do you think that's been important for you and your success, and would you recommend that to others?
100%. If I look back on the trajectory of our growth, my growth as an agent, then to a team, and now to this, indie brokerage. There were a couple defining moments, right? And like we're on a growth curve, all of a sudden you kind of hit a trajectory up. And the first one for me was probably 2 or 3 years into building a team. And that was really getting dialed in on our core purpose, like our why. Because in the early stages, I was pursuing, making a living and then building a business and making money. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't until, like I mentioned, a colleague of mine like asked me, well, what's your purpose? What do you really love to do? And I said, coaching. And I did this. Actually, Damon John talked about it today in his keynote address. One of the things he does every year is writes his eulogy. And so my friend and colleague challenged me and had me write out my eulogy. We spent like an hour doing it. The exercise, like, it's a bit emotional, like teary-eyed and stuff. But what I came away with was like, at your funeral, nobody's going to be celebrating you for how many houses you sold or millions of dollars or this or that, right? It's really, who you were as a human and how you showed up for them. And I saw that it was to live, learn, love, grow, and help other people do the same. And the growth piece was big. And so I just really got focused and shifted the identity of what I call my business. Like I went from having a real estate team where, we sell real estate and I coach agents, to just this little slight pivot where I say, okay, what I really have is a marketing and coaching company. And I find and identify really talented people that want to create a bigger life. And we happen to sell real estate. And that little pivot on really getting clear on who we were was the first thing. And then the second bump a couple of years later, where we really kind of started to get almost like double 100% growth year over year, was when we really started using this one-page plan. And I think really the forced clarity that following that model, and the model is called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. I did a session on it at our last Side forum, so if people want to look that up, that's there for them. But the book's called Traction by Gino Wickman, and it's an elegant. It's not a software. It's a framework, right? And how to run and grow a small business, and it's really elegant in its simplicity. But the main thing that it does is it gives exacting clarity, and clarity is power. Like once people are really clear on something, then good stuff happens. So that's my 2 cents on really leveraging this. So when I'm helping teams now, like part of our brokerage model is we have got 5 teams out of our 45 agents. All of the team leaders create kind of an identity and a vision statement for their team and how they want to grow their business, what's it going to look and feel like. So that's been pretty instrumental for us.
Question for you on the clarity piece. So do you find that whether it be yourself, partners, people, or team leads, team members, do you think that's hard for people to get to really understand where they want to go? Or do you think it's somewhat intuitive? And like, is there ever a blocker with the clarity piece? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a requirement. What's the saying? It was Martin Luther King. So where there's no vision, people perish. Or something in the Bible it comes from originally, right? But it's in our industry, especially in a market like Bren's or mine, or even Nicole's, if somebody's producing at a high level, their income is going to exceed their needs pretty quickly. And in my personal experience, before I took the time to really, instill upon our agent partners, hey, we want you to have clarity on not just your business, but your personal goals. Because your personal goals are what's going to pull you in the direction of what you're creating through the business as a vehicle. What I would see before I really got what do I want to call it, like adamant about it, I guess you'd say, with our partners, I noticed people would get to a certain level of income about in Silicon Valley, a family of 4, you need $250,000 to live on. When people get to about $300,000 a year, if they didn't have a bigger vision of something that they're working to besides money, then they would just level off and they plateau. So to answer your question, sometimes it is hard for people, but I make it a requirement. It's like you've got to find a bigger vision, because otherwise you're gonna plateau. And it's not that I need you to make $1 million. It's just I know that if you want to live a bigger life, I want to help you do it, and you're not going to get there unless you're clear on it.
Makes sense. Nicole, you mentioned in one of our conversations that hiring and having the right support is critical. And it sounds like you've learned over time how to do that successfully. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's, I've sat on many a panel with Brett, and he's heard me say this a million times. I have hired, fired, rehired the same role. And unfortunately, the biggest takeaway from that is that it just takes, one bad grape to spoil the whole barrel. And you really don't see that until you're outside of it, until you move past it. And, they say hindsight's 20/20. And it's just like anything else, the discipline of keeping, the right people in the right roles and, developing them and coaching them like Brett does an excellent job of, and getting them to the next level, whether they even realize they want to get to the next level. I think that, touching on the question you asked, Brett, is I think a lot of people have clarity on what they want and where they want to go. They just have a really hard time articulating it and paving the path to it. So our goal, as team leaders, is to get them there, is to show them the path. And sometimes people don't necessarily want to go down the path with you, or the saying of you can lead a horse to water, right? Figuring out quickly who's not going to fit in your organization and getting rid of them.
Got it. Awesome. Bryn, from our conversations, and you've touched on in this panel, you consider yourself a transaction broker. So how has this partnership help with that? Would love to hear more.
So I touched on that, I think, a little bit earlier about how I've been able to focus on kind of what I enjoy about the business and also where I think I add the most value. But we're in an interesting transition in our market, where we were a market that was dominated by local firms that the big nationals and internationals could not penetrate. And one of the the offshoots of that was extremely low brokerage splits. And what that meant is there wasn't really a big motivation for building a brokerage because it wasn't profitable. In the last 4 years, that shifted, and the brokerage fees are starting to move towards market. They're not at market; they're still very low, but they're moving that direction. And so, part of the learning curve I'm involved in right now is building a brokerage, which has never been our focus. And the model we're adopting is Bayside is kind of a mini side. So we're not white label, but we de-emphasize the Bayside portion, and we promote our agent team. So this last year we added a long time indie firm under the Bayside banner, but they've got their own brand, and we kind of de-emphasize the Bayside and promote that, and that's the Hoban Company. And then we also took on a high-producing team, the Davidson Group, and again, they're branded. So we're kind of emulating Side in our market and using Bayside as a platform for teams or small indie firms to come in under the Side banner and develop their own brand as associate partners.
Great. And then two follow-up questions. One, what do you think is the driver of that shift where brokerage or splits to the house have become a bit more attractive? And two, you've brought in two companies underneath the Bayside umbrella. Are you hoping to do more of that in 2021, or curious about that as well?
Well, I think the driver is that when these international and national brands came into the market, they've got more traditional split structures, and when Compass came in our market, and they had to change their splits just for our market. But we're seeing more penetration from other companies, and so that's putting upward pressure on splits. And we are, we will have some announcements soon. We are expanding, and we are bringing on teams, and so we've got some exciting new folks coming on, and see that continuing through 21 and 22.
Fantastic. Nicole, you are very passionate about education, and I believe it's important for you and your team members. I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh gosh, here I go on my soapbox. I am very passionate about it because I think that it's absolutely ridiculous that the barrier for entry to get your real estate license is less than that of a barber. I mean, when you really think about that, it's pretty crazy. We're handling people's largest assets and portfolios, and dealing with multi-million dollars, or in Brett's case, billions of dollars. I mean, not knowing what we're doing is so detrimental to the consumer. It can be. And I just don't think that there's really enough training out there. There's not enough, individual agent development tools. And I think that that's why every agent, should be on a team if they're starting out. They should be under the wing of someone that not only is going to develop them and care about them like Brett does, getting them to the next level of success monetarily, but also someone who's going to teach them not necessarily what to do, but what not to do. I don't know if anybody sat on the legal panel earlier, but that's what I'm talking about, those types of things. It's pretty scary, how quickly things can go bad. And, as an independent broker owner at one point, all of that liability was really on me. The agent, could be, it's California. So those of you not from California, people can sue you for anything, for any reason. And you can be named individually, but really the liability lies on the broker. And to not educate your people it's just dumb. And I commend Side for, not only just being a great technology company, not just being like a great marketing company, coaching, developing, but also, the compliance that we share, the weekly tips, the level of experts that we have, at the broker level. It's really impressive. And I can keep going on my soapbox all day, so we should probably move on.
Well, the thing is, Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more because I think you know, you have a lot of, you know, designations and you try to have the highest level of education possible. And I know you encourage your team members to do that as well. And I guess I'd love to dig into more why you think, you know, that has been helpful for your success, et cetera. I'd love to hear about that specifically.
Yeah, you know, there's the saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? And even though I was very successful early on, I still didn't know what I didn't know. And I got my GRI before I got my broker's license, which is the Graduate Realtor Institute, which as I was going through it, I thought to myself, this should be the barrier for entry. Everyone should have that GRI. Everyone should know the basics of investment. Everybody should know the basics of agency. Everyone should know the basics of ethics. I mean, we can put a PowerPoint on in the background of our computer and click next every time it prompts us and then answer questions that are true, false. And every time the answer is true and still get a real estate license and renew it every 2 years. I mean, really, that's what we're held to as far as continuing education. I mean, there's nothing else out there that says, here is the minimum standard for you to be able to sell someone's largest asset. And, you know, I just, again, am so passionate about it. I think everyone should start with a GRI.
Love it. Well, you know, as three leaders and, you know, heads of the company, what do you look for when you're bringing on team members, or in Brandon, in your case, teams or companies underneath the larger umbrella? I'll start with you, Brett.
I think we got two things that we really look for and recruit to. One is kind of personality attributes, and the second are core values. And I would just the first one of the personality attributes wasn't really anything that prescriptive that somebody else given us. It's just looking back at like who are the hires where you're like, oh my god, that person's awesome. And for those people, it's the character attributes are they're humble. They've got hustle, like they'll take swift, purposeful action to pursue opportunities and correct mistakes. They're hungry, and that you know they get a certain amount of opportunity, and they're wanting more, and they're smart. You know, they're sharp, they're quick, they present well, and they've got some level of what we call polish, right? Because at least in our market, you know, we're served in Silicon Valley. Most of our clients are work in tech, you know, and they're college educated, and you know they expect the person sitting across from them to be at least as smart in real estate as they are in their own chosen field. Although they might not have, you know, as many years of potential training, they got to be sharp. So that's the character attributes. As far as you know, core values are things that we came up with. I think they're probably similar to what Nicole's group is, and probably a pretty interesting study is like how much are the core values similar for the side partners. But you know, our core values are we hustle and work hard. We're growth minded, so they got to be willing to want to grow and learn. We choose a positive mindset. That's kind of a table stakes thing. We are a team. People got to want to work collaboratively in this industry that predominantly has been kind of a lone wolf, you know, single agent sport, and turning this into a team sport. We embrace accountability. Obviously, if we're paying for marketing for our clients and agents to drive opportunities to them, we need them to be willing to lean into being accountable and then putting our clients' interest first. I mean, clients first really is first, but we feel like it's so obvious that no one really gets in the door unless they have that. We felt like it was important to have it, but it is everyone in our group, I think, embodies that. That's what gets, you know, anyone who's great at this business, I think, to that level. But those are the things that we look for.
Got it. Nicole and Brand, I'd love to hear from you two as well. And then to the audience, we'll then open up questions for the last 5 minutes. So Nicole or Brand, whoever wants to hop in first.
Go ahead.
Mine is, you know, almost identical to Brett's. We hire to the disc and we hire to the core value. So right off the bat, we want to make sure it's a personality fit. And sometimes you can't always tell that in the first meeting, sometimes even the second, third, fourth, fifth. You know, you're putting your best foot forward on an interview, so you really can't tell who that person is. And we're looking at the person as a whole, right? Not just that person that's going to show up for the interview. So we just assess them. And then we also go through the core values. We actually pull out the core values in the very first interview. And, you know, like Brett said, they're probably very consistent across the board with all side partners. A lot of the same ones that he mentioned are on ours. You know, customer first. We always do the right thing no matter what. We embrace technology. all of those things. I mean, it's a list of like 20 things that we go through, and a lot of the disc profile overlaps with those things. You're going to see that on the disc that we run. We actually do a 27-page disc. Sometimes it ends up being a little bit more depending on, the person themselves and what comes up. And then we actually hire someone to assess that disc. So he's actually a licensed disc assessment something. Didn't even know that existed, but we found him, and he's really good at pointing out, what to look for certain roles and matching that to the disc. Again, you can really like someone, which was my problem early on with hiring, is I really liked the person. And I was actually creating roles for people because I liked them. So I had to take a step back and remember, you're hiring to the disc, you're hiring to the job, you're hiring to the core values.
And for those of you in the audience that may not know what the disc is, can you share a little bit more in a sentence or two?
Yeah, it's essentially a personality assessment. It lets you know, as a whole, your drivers, the things that motivate you, the things that whether you're a leader or a follower, because everyone has to have a leader to follow, and followers need a leader, right? Or wait, I said that wrong. You guys get what I'm saying though. And it just kind of gives you insight into their strengths and weaknesses, as far as you're gonna have to help me out with this one, but like D is driver, I is interactor, so your social butterfly, S is your that's the one I always forget. I'm gonna go with C. C is compliance. What's the S one?
That's a steady.
Steady
That's a
Eddie,
steady.
that's right.
Supporters. There are people who like to be in support girls.
Yeah, I'm such a low S that it doesn't even resonate with me. It really fit them into the right role.
Got it. And Brim, what about you when you're hiring?
I would echo what both Brett and Nicole said, and we have a third very simple test. We do a company retreat every year at our ranch in Montana, and we have everybody up, and if we can't see them hanging in Montana with everybody, it's not a good fit. So that's our informal filter that we apply after everything else.
I love that.
Well,
yeah, you got to be able to hang out with these people. If you're going to spend the better part of your waking hours with these people, then they should be people you want to hang out with.
Exactly right.
I love it, and it's really good to know that you have a ranch in Montana. As a total aside, just kidding.
I know. So I'm going to get an invite to that one. I'm going to apply to his team.
I know, seriously. I'm like, is it near Big Sky? I'd love to go.
I will have a partner.
We've got a couple of questions.
That's what we need.
I love it. Cool. We've got one question that came in. How do you draw high impact teams, and what attributes attract them? I guess that's sort of a build upon individuals, but in terms of attracting teams, would love to understand. It sounds like Bryn and Brett, this is something that you do. If you could elaborate a bit more about that.
So how do we draw teams? Is that what it said?
It says, how do you draw high impact teams? What attributes attract them?
Yeah. For us, we are seeing some good growth coming from some of our emerging teams. And I think when I look at when we dialed in our recruiting formula, we decided we weren't going to work with new agents just on the solo agent side. We were only going to work with agents that were either proven talent or emerging talent. When I say emerging talent, like in our business, our area, doing at least 5 to 7 million a year in business, and that they have this desire to grow. Really didn't matter their tenure, as long as they were at least in the business a couple of years, because we don't want to slow down to teach people the nuts and bolts of real estate. When I think about the success that we're having in growing teams, it's a similar model. It's someone who's actually already started down the path to build a team. And they're recognizing how difficult it is, how to get the hiring right, how to get the systems right, how to get the people right. And so the offering that Side provides us to cascade or support that infrastructure to help them, get up to speed. And the fact that I had built a high producing team myself, it literally gives me the ability to kind of help fast track those people with that. But as far as attracting them, we're reaching out to, you got to have a strong value proposition that's got some marketing and lead generation associated with it. If you're going to try to attract teams. We landed a partnership with Zillow Flex, and so that's given us the opportunity to bring on pretty much as many agents as we want, and then we have leads to support them. So that helps.
Awesome. And sorry to interrupt, we're actually going to cut out here because it's 3 o'clock on the dot. So Brandon, we can follow up with you at your ranch in Montana. Super psyched for that after we're all vaccinated. But thank you three amazing entrepreneurs for joining me today and for answering these questions, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you again for your time.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Bye.